Okay, we're just going to wait a couple more minutes to make sure that all of our attendees that registered are going to log on. I know it's probably everybody's lunch break. It's a Wednesday. All right, I think we've got a good attendance at this point. I'm going to get started. Really love looking at this picture of myself. As you can see, I have a lot of more gray hairs than I did when that picture was taken. Um, Today, we are going to be covering creating a sense of scale, what our carbon emissions look like, and how to take action. Also, how to visualize what a metric ton of emissions even looks like, and what we should be doing next. So I think that we all want to do right by the planet, and we're not quite sure what we should be doing, how things are measured, and that is what we are here for today. I have Sam Saab, who was just on. He is our greenhouse gas pollution accountant, and a panelist to just make sure that at the end, any questions that he might have answers to are answered. So please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of this webinar, and Sam will field them to himself or myself at the end. So I am the director of We Are Neutral. I've been running the organization for 13 and a half years, hence my new gray hairs that I have in the front. And in those 13 and a half years, I've really come to understand uh, what the general public might not understand. And we definitely, at this point, the organization has been around close to 20 years. We feel they have the expertise to address a lot of these things. So I want to talk about our mission. We Are Neutral is an environmental nonprofit that helps businesses and individuals understand, track, reduce, and offset their comprehensive environmental footprints, giving businesses and individuals an opportunity to take responsibility for their environmental impact. We take a lot of pride in ensuring that carbon footprints and the calculations of your environmental impact are comprehensive. 20 years ago, not a whole lot of people and businesses were tracking their environmental footprint. And to this day, a lot of the carbon footprints that we see are not comprehensive. They are accounting for one or two things, and they are not comprehensive. So we really like to work with our partners to make sure that every single part of their operations are accounted for. The same time, we help the term offset, meaning you take responsibility for your carbon footprint. I know I drive my car to the store. I can plant enough trees to sequester that carbon. And there are offset credits involved in this mission. We don't believe in over 60% of the carbon offset credits that are on the market today. Let me check my phone. Yes, we are recording. I have my staff making sure that everybody can see and hear everything. Um, so what is in a carbon footprint? It's basically a carbon footprint is the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions, basically pollution, that individuals are responsible for. They're caused by a person, an event, an organization, a product, or an activity. And the term actually was coined by BP, an oil company, back in the 2000s. And I believe that that term was coined to make us feel responsible as individuals, but what's largely responsible for climate change is big oil and large corporations. But our individual carbon footprints also are important. This includes the food that you eat, the electricity that you have at home, driving your car, flying in a plane, packages that you send and receive, the garbage that you throw away. Um, what I like to reiterate is that pollution has to be requested. So your home is not necessarily just using energy if it is vacant. So I have a decision to make when I turn on my air conditioning. I have a decision to make when I turn on the light switch, when I order a package, when I book a flight. Um, and we just have to think and remember that there are 8 billion people on this planet doing the same thing, and especially large corporations doing this on a massive, massive scale. If there's any fossil fuels that are involved in any stage of actions, it is emitting pollution. So we do have a way of categorizing carbon footprints. Basically, we categorize them in scope one, scope two, and scope three. Um, this is basically categorizing how much influence we have over certain things. I have control on turning my lights on, but I don't necessarily have control about the energy that my local utility company is purchasing to make those lights turn on. I have control whether or not I order a package, but I do not have control over how that package is being delivered to me, whether it's in an electric vehicle, a plane, um, or a local vehicle. I also have control over booking a flight, but I don't have control over what kind of fuel that flight is using. So this is why the carbon footprints are broken down into scopes. This is an example of like an average business carbon footprint. Again, you can see it's broken down into scope one, scope two, and scope three. So scope one is what they have the most control over. They are using natural gas on site. That is under their control. They have commercial vehicles that they purchased. They are purchasing the gas, they purchase the vehicles, so they have the most control over that. Scope two is electricity, like I said, might not have immense control over what kind of electricity your local utility company is purchasing to power your business or home. Scope three can account for over 80% of your carbon footprint. And these are the things I mentioned, like when I order a package, I don't have control over what kind of vehicles are being used to deliver that package to me. So this is water and wastewater, business flight travel, employee commute. You have no control over what kind of cars your employees drive, shipments, waste, recycling, compost. And I want to take a second to go over the stars that are next to business flight travel and recycling. So you can see in this pie chart that electricity is 33% of this business's carbon footprint, natural gas is 42%. And you can see that that flight is only 3% of their overall footprint. The way at this point, which I'd like to change, the way that carbon footprints are calculated is that only accounts for your seat on that flight. On average, there's 100 to 300 passengers on a flight. So realistically, the portion of this pie chart would be close to 200 times what is represented here. The other stars are highlighting recycling. So obviously we want to reduce, reuse, recycle, but we can't ignore the fact that it takes a lot of energy to make an aluminum can into a new aluminum can. So these are things that in current protocols are not necessarily accounted for. Um, and carbon footprints can feel pretty arbitrary. So I'll go back. This business has 1,269.4 tons of pollution. I don't know that that means anything to anybody. We have a pretty good understanding of time and money and space and weight. And I don't know that 1,269.4 tons means anything to anybody at this point. And that is something that we are trying to change. We are trying to create a world in which we understand what 1,200 tons of pollution means. Um, and we can do this by learning the language, visualizing emissions, and creating a sense of scale, the same way that we do with time, money, weights, units of measure, etc. So 1 metric ton in context is the unit of weight that's commonly used to measure carbon footprints. Um, this is 1 metric ton is 1,000 kilograms, 2,200 pounds, and 1.102 tons. To give yourself some context, a Clydesdale horse weighs basically 2,000 pounds. So that's a good way to understand the weight of the pollution associated with 1 metric ton. This is my favorite way to understand a metric ton because I think this is the most visual and the most impactful. So if you think of a light pole, like a telephone pole, it's about 26 feet. If you make a cube that is 26 feet, that is 1 metric ton of emissions. So if we go back, this is 1,269.4 of these cubes. I always think that if pollution were hot pink and we could visualize these emissions coming out of our tailpipes or out of the planes, I think we'd be a lot more alerted by what it is and the impact that we have on the planet. So again, we really try at We Are Neutral to create a sense of scale. So like what is a ton? What am I doing? How does this impact the environment? So 1 ton is 361 LED light bulbs that stay on for a month straight. It's about 19,000 t-shirts that are shipped from Miami to New York City. It's about 1,100 vegan meals, 333 meat meals, 2,400 miles driven by an average car, and about 21% of a home's electricity used for 1 year, and 80,000 of our smartphones charged. To compensate for that, which is kind of what we do, we help businesses take responsibility for their footprint, and we do an equal and opposite amount of good to compensate for that footprint. So to offset this, it's about 85 trash bags of waste recycled instead of landfilled, and 16 tree seedlings that are grown for 10 years, sequestering carbon emissions. So again, creating a sense of scale, putting all of this into perspective. You could drive from Orlando to Atlanta more than 416 times, having the same environmental impact as just one plane flying the same distance. Every mile that you drive in your car produces a 2 foot cube of carbon emissions. Again, I believe if emissions were hot pink, we would feel guilty and maybe make different choices. Using fossil fuels from your local power grid for your home's electricity has the same environmental impact as powering your home with solar for 25 years. Solar is great. This is my favorite one. This is the one that I think that most people cannot unhear. Drinking just one disposable water bottle, one single-use plastic water bottle, has the same environmental impact as refilling a reusable bottle with tap water for an entire year. So if you follow us on Instagram or read our newsletters, we like to provide a lot of these facts that make you uh, understand the reality of what is worse, so that you can make more informed decisions. Our footprints have a big impact. And again, I'm going to say that we as individuals have a responsibility, and at the same time, we have to hold big oil and corporations accountable. But the US per capita, the carbon footprint in 2024 was about 17 tons of pollution. That's about 3 times more than the global average of 6.58. If everyone behaved like the United States, we would need 5.06 planets to sustain our demand. This is just not sustainable. So, taking action, what we can do. I truly believe in progress over perfection. We don't need one person doing everything perfectly, living off the grid. We need all of us to be doing all the things that we can and mostly holding big oil and corporations accountable. So this is a Venn diagram of choosing the most environmentally friendly option isn't always feasible for people. And this is something that we respect and understand. So we break it down to businesses, society, and lifestyle. The things that we can be doing: vote with your dollar. That is the biggest thing that we can be doing. Big companies have big carbon footprints, and they are most likely working with big oil to make sure that their prices are low. Um, Measuring and asking about their carbon footprints is a huge thing that you can do. And then also supporting companies that are doing the right thing has created this intense peer pressure. So you can, if you're watching TV, you can see a commercial where if you buy a pound of dog food, then a pound of dog food will be donated to a local shelter. There are a lot of changes that have been happening where Gen Z is voting with their dollar. They are not paying for products that are owned by companies that don't align with their values. And in my 13 and a half years of working with this organization, I have seen a shift of businesses feeling that peer pressure. So it's a huge, huge, huge thing that you can do. Another thing you can do, that this is probably the newest thing in the last 3 years that I started to understand voting with your dollar, is who you're banking with. Your money, all of your money, your retirement, your checking account, your savings account, that money is not just sitting there waiting for you. 99% of the time, it's being invested in fossil fuels. So it's really important to understand where your money is sitting. I'm not a representative of Climate First Bank. Shout out to them. They are a bank that we work with. They're one of the first banks that um, makes sure that all the money that is sitting within that bank is being used to go towards loans that support environmentally friendly projects. So it's really important, and this is something I was not aware of 3 years ago, but it's important to bring to light. Society, get involved. Help design the infrastructure in your county or city to make the sustainable option easy to do. Go to city and county commission meetings. Advocate for increased public transportation, increased bike lanes, more trees, adding electrical vehicle chargers all over to make owning and driving an EV more accessible. While we realize they're still expensive, advocate for increased renewable energy sources from your utility company. I'm here in Gainesville, Florida. We have a large community that is advocating for our local utility company to do right by us and right by the planet, and buy local. And if we had one thing to say about something you can do today, other than the other two things I've already addressed, improving diets through reducing meat consumption, replacing it with plant-based and protein-rich foods. You can see that meat is responsible for 56.6% of the average diet. Dairy is 18.3%. So that always isn't feasible. People have health conditions. There's a term called Meatless Monday. Just do your best. So also reducing food waste has the potential to avoid 1 to 2.5 gigatons of pollution a year, which is about 2 to 4% of all global emissions. The second thing I want to talk about is what food waste does. So, food waste, when it goes into the landfill, produces methane, which is one of the most global warming greenhouse gases that we have that goes into our atmosphere. Composting, however, makes the soil rich and healthy, and our oceans and our soil and trees all sequester pollution. So healthy soil, healthy ocean, healthy trees. So that is why our diet makes so much of an impact to what we're doing to actually move the needle. I kind of said this before, but I am a serial optimist and change is happening. Again, 20 years ago, was going door to door trying to convince businesses and individuals to understand what's happening to our environment. But now people are coming to us. I think it's peer pressure. I think that the news, the public relations of climate change is reaching the masses. We are absolutely at a tipping point, which is why I can keep doing what I do. So this is the hopeful part of this webinar. So far, as our organization, we have spared almost 85,000 tons of pollution from hitting our environment, from hitting our atmosphere. We planted 61,000 trees, native trees that are being monitored. We have done 1,500 energy upgrades for low-income families, which helps them save money on their utility bills while conserving resources. We have had 1,400 volunteers. We have exchanged 86,000 light bulbs to energy efficient light bulbs. We have installed 4,700 water saving devices. We've saved almost $500,000 for low income families. All of this is done by businesses paying us to take responsibility for their impact. So it's a pretty sweet business model. We've diverted 200,000 pounds of waste that is now composted instead of being in a landfill. And we've had about 11,000 hours donated by volunteers. Another thing that we really like to talk about is environmental education, like this webinar. Um, Last year, we reached over 1 million people with our online strategies and in-person events. So any of these aha moments that might have hit you today, we are really starting to reach the masses, and we're very, very, very proud of that. So now I'm going to ask Sam to turn his camera back on because I don't have access to the question and answer section of this webinar. I'm curious, Sam, if we have had any questions come through today.
Not so far, but we'll wait a couple minutes to see if any come through.
Sounds great. And I also just want to reiterate that we are absolutely open to all questions any time of the day. You can email me, Anna@weareneutral.com. You can follow us on social media at We Are Neutral. I hope that this webinar has sparked some interest, and I hope that you will simmer with the things that I've touched on today and reach out. We're here to help. We try to make taking responsibility and holding other businesses and big oil accountable an easy lift. I know a lot of times it can feel too big or too late, and that is the opposite of the mood that we have here at We Are Neutral.
And we're getting a couple questions coming through. First up, do we have any case studies we want to share?
Yes, I would love to. So we work with Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival, which is a giant music festival. It's like a modern day Woodstock. We've been working with them since 2011, and we have done 900 energy upgrades for low-income families right in Manchester, Tennessee, where the festival is held. And those energy savings helps to directly, locally help offset the carbon footprint of the festival. The festival is extremely environmentally conscious. We're all camping, we go every year. So it's a little impact, but 99% of the carbon footprint is people traveling to and from. So we've done energy upgrades to help offset the carbon footprint of the festival. That's one of my favorite stories. Another story is a local brewery that we had that really wanted to pay us to, plant enough trees to offset the carbon footprint of their brewing industry. But they just didn't have the funds at the time to donate to us. So they started brewery yoga every Sunday that was donation based. And those donations were able to cover the carbon footprint of the brewery. And we are a 501(c)(3). We're a 1% for the planet member. And so we like to create really creative solutions to make sure that taking responsibility is something that businesses and individuals are able to do and not have money be a source of conflict.
And then, Anna, how do you suggest that younger people or people starting out their careers in sustainability get involved in this type of work?
First of all, we have an internship program. Every fall, we accept 3 interns. It's a year-long internship, so definitely hit me up if you're interested in being an intern. And one thing, I have a lot of like, what should we be doing slides that I didn't cover today, but start to be inspired. Watch documentaries. Follow really good environmental people on Instagram in whatever social media. I'm like a dinosaur, so I'm like Facebook and Instagram only. But follow really pivotal environmental speakers, watch environmental documentaries. And at this point in time, every single industry, every single job you have will have an environmental component. Um, every company is starting to adopt a lot of these principles. So there's probably a sustainable officer position in just about any company you can think of. I also love to be a mentor, so definitely email me. We can have, if you're local, we can have coffee. I'd love to help.
What helped me personally, as obviously a younger person who's in this field, is also just getting more involved locally. There are a ton of groups, I assume, near you that are focused on environmental issues and that meet. And the more what I've learned, as I've kind of been more involved in this, is kind of in your local community, everyone involved in this sort of thing, involved in sustainability, involved in environmentalism, kind of knows each other and can get you in the door in places. So that's really helpful. It helps build that sense of community too, which is really important. But that's all the questions we have, Anna.
Okay, great. Well, we never expect how many questions we're going to have. Sometimes we go over with questions, sometimes we go under. But it was really great to have all of you participate today. This webinar will be sent to you and sent to everybody that registered. The recording will be sent, the slides will be sent. We also have a YouTube channel that we're starting to post these webinars on. Follow us on social media. Again, Anna at weareneutral.com. Email me to ask any follow-up questions. Super grateful for your attendance today. And now you have 30 minutes of your lunch break back, which is not a bad thing.